All right, so we are now recording. Okay, and away we go. All right, truth tables. When we get done with this section, we will know how to construct truth tables and also employing our negations, disjunction, and conjunction operators we've seen in the past for sets. We'll also be able to construct truth tables for conditional and biconditional statements and for compound statements. We're also going to look at the hierarchy of logical connectives. Basically, it's like the order of operations, if you will, for connectives. We'll see that towards the end. What is a truth table? A truth table is a table that basically helps us to determine whether a compound statement is true or false based on the truth values of the individual component of simple statements. All right. Now, we've seen in the past that a simple statement by definition is either true or false. There's no gray area. There is no maybe it's true or maybe it's false. It's either true or false. Suppose we consider the statement P to be equal to the statement that today is Tuesday. How ironic, huh? If in fact it is Tuesday, then statement P is true. And it is certainly true today. And its negation, denoted again with that little tilde symbol in front of the statement, would be the statement that today is not Tuesday. And that statement would be false. If P is true, then the negation of P would be false. All right, so like I said, it's relevant for our situation today. Today is Tuesday, so today is, we can say that today is not Tuesday is false. We can say that today is Tuesday is true. Now, if it's not Tuesday, then P is false, and the negation of P then would be true. All right, a truth table. This is what a truth table looks like. There are two possible conditions for a single statement, P. It can either be true or false. And the table tells us that in each case, the negation has to be the opposite of the truth value of statement P. So if statement P is true, then the negation of statement P would be false. If statement P is false, then the negation of statement P would be true. Does this little truth table make sense here? That makes sense?
Okay. Yes.
About that?
Yes, yes.
All right, now if we have a compound statement with two component statements, P and Q, then there would be four possible combinations of the truth values for these two individual statements. Statement P, now normally, ladies and gentlemen, this is the convention that's used when we have two simple statements comprising a compound statement. For statement P, they always have the truth values looking like this: true, true, false, false, always in that order, okay? And statement Q, then, they run the values this way. They alternate them: true, false, false. All right. So that's what the four possible combinations of true and false could be for two component statements of a compound statement. The first one saying that both P and Q are true. The second one is saying that statement P is true and statement Q is false. The next one is statement P is false, statement Q is true. And the last statement is saying both statements P and Q are both false. Okay. All right, suppose that a friend tells you, I bought a new computer and a new iPad. Well, we got the connective word and, which is a conjunction, and that suggests the intersection of sets. This compound statement can be symbolically rendered as P and Q, correct? Using our connective statement for and. We've seen that last week. Where P is the statement, I bought a new computer, and Q is the statement, I bought a new iPad. When would this conjunctive statement be true? Well, because we have P and Q, ladies and gentlemen, the only time this conjunctive statement, this compound conjunctive statement is going to be true is if both P and Q are true, okay? That's to say that if your friend actually had made both purchases, then of course the statement would obviously be true. On the other hand, suppose your friend bought only a new laptop or only a new iPad, or maybe neither of those things, then the statement would be false. All right, so a conjunction P and Q is only true when both statements P and Q are true. Otherwise, it's false. All right. So if you look at the truth table for statement P, do we have true, true, false, false? And statement Q, we have true, false, true, false. When would P and Q be true? Well, it would be true for this first situation. If both statements P and Q are true, then P and Q would be true. In the second situation, if P is true and Q is false, P and Q would be false. The third statement, compound statement. If P is false and Q is true, then the compound statement P and Q would be false. Finally, the last statement. If both P and C. Pardon? Question? Okay. Last statement. If both simple statements P and Q are false, then the compound statement P and Q is false. So again, it's always true that P and Q will only be true provided that both P and Q are true. If just one of them and or both of them are false, then the entire compound statement is false. Statement number one would be that the person bought a laptop and an iPad. That would obviously render the situation as being true. Second statement would be that they bought a laptop, but they did not buy an iPad. Well, to say that they bought a laptop and an iPad then would be false. If they just bought an iPad but not a laptop, to say that they bought an iPad and a laptop, that would be false. If they bought neither an iPad or a laptop, then obviously to say that they bought a laptop and an iPad would at least obviously be false. Is this making sense, sir?
Yes.
About this. Okay. Now, suppose from the previous situation, the person made the statement, I bought a new laptop or a new iPad. This compound statement is not an and, but it's a what? It's an or. So we have the disjunction symbol in between P and Q. Well, this is to be read as P or Q. Okay, where P is the statement that I bought a new laptop and Q is the statement that I bought a new iPad. When would this disjunctive statement be true? Well, ladies and gentlemen, unlike a conjunctive statement that requires both simple statements be true to be true, okay, an or compound statement just requires that at least one of your component simple statements be true for the whole thing to be true. All right. So in other words, how would we construct the truth table? Well, for statement P, we'll have true, true, false, false. For statement Q, true, false, true, false. Now, the first statement is saying, okay, if statement P is true, in other words, if the person bought a laptop and statement Q is true, that the person also bought an iPad, then obviously the person bought a laptop or an iPad would be true, correct? If the person bought a laptop, but they did not buy an iPad, P or Q would still be true because at least one of these simple component statements is true. So the compound or statement is true. Or if the person did not buy a laptop, but purchased an iPad, then again, the compound or compound or statement would still be true because at least one of these simple statements is true. The only time an or statement could be false is if both simple statements are false. In other words, if the person did not buy a laptop and they did not buy an iPad, then to say that they bought a laptop or an iPad would be false. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we're laying the ground rules for the conjunction and the disjunction as far as truth tables are concerned. Okay. Now, conditional statements. Remember, conditional statements were a one-directional statement where we had an arrow emanating from the left and moving to the right. And we would use the words if then. If you see the words if then in a compound statement, you have what is called a conditional statement. All right. Conditional statements are sometimes referred to as implications, and they consist of two simple statements. The first component, or the first statement, the if part, ladies and gentlemen, is called an antecedent. Okay. So suppose that we have a conditional statement that says that the antecedent is I bought a ticket. So if I bought a ticket, okay, so the antecedent is if I bought a ticket, that is the antecedent. Then the second component would say I can go to the concert. The second portion of this conditional statement, I can go to the concert, is called the consequent. Okay, so you have the antecedent, and then you have the consequent. Right? Obviously, the consequent is kind of like dependent upon the antecedent. Right? Okay, now think about the following simple example. If the Cubs win tomorrow, they make the playoffs. Symbolically, we could write this as P then Q, where P, the antecedent, is the statement if the Cubs win, or the Cubs win. The consequent would be that they make the playoffs. That would be statement Q. So this is a conditional statement. When would this statement be true, and when would it be false? All right, so again, statement P is the Cubs win tomorrow, and statement Q is they make the playoffs, okay? When would this conditional statement be true, and when would it be false? We're about to find out. Well, there's 4 possible scenarios or cases. Suppose the Cubs win tomorrow. That means P is true. And suppose that they make the playoffs. That means statement Q is true. Both statements P and Q are true. Since they win and make the playoffs, then, ladies and gentlemen, the conditional statement is true. The entire conditional statement is true. Case 2, if the Cubs win tomorrow but don't make the playoffs, statement P would be true, but statement Q would be false. Since the Cubs didn't make the playoffs despite winning, we would say the conditional statement is false. Case 3, suppose the Cubs lose tomorrow and still make the playoffs. So statement P is false, but statement Q is true. Well, the Cubs still make the playoffs despite having lost. In this scenario, this situation, we would say the conditional compound statement is actually true. One possible case, the Cubs lose tomorrow and don't make the playoffs. Both statements P and Q are both false. Well, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, this is the same as case 3. The statement is only false if the Cubs win and they don't make the playoffs. Hence, if both statements P and Q are false, we say the compound conditional statement is true. So there's only 2 possible situations in which a compound conditional statement would be true. What are those 2 conditions? The 2 conditions in which a compound conditional statement is true, an if-then statement is true, occurs only when, if the first statement is false, the antecedent statement P is false, and yet the consequent statement Q is true. The conditional statement in that case would be true. And it's also true in one other possible scenario. If both the antecedent and the consequent are both false, the conditional statement is called true. Other than that, a conditional statement is always what? False. All right. Wait a minute. No, it's also true if both the antecedent and the consequent are both true. So the bottom line is this, ladies. I should have said this. What is the only situation in which a compound conditional if-then statement is false? What's the only scenario which renders it false? It's only false if statement P, the antecedent, is true, but the consequence statement Q is false. That's the only time an if-then statement is false. Otherwise, it's always true. Okay? Always true. So this would be the true statement that summarizes all those words on the previous slide. The conditional statement, if P then Q, is false only when the antecedent P is true and the consequent statement Q is false. Other than that, it's always true. So we could summarize it with a truth table. P is the statement the Cubs win tomorrow. Q is the statement they make the playoffs. P can take on these values, true, true, false, false. Q takes on the values, true, false, true, false. Now, the first statement would be saying, okay, both P and Q are true, meaning the Cubs win and they do make the playoffs. That would render the if-then compound conditional statement as being true. Second scenario, if P is true and Q is false. In other words, the Cubs win, but they don't make the playoffs. In this case, the conditional statement would be false. Statement 3, if P is false and Q is true, in other words, if the Cubs lose and still make the playoffs, the if-then statement is still true. Last possible scenario, if P is false and Q is false. If the Cubs lose and don't make the playoffs, believe it or not, the if-then statement is still true. So again, when is an if-then false? It's only false when what? The antecedent is true and the consequent statement is what? False. Other than that, it's always what? True. That makes sense. All right, it's, it really comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, thinking about it, that helps, but also just memorizing these scenarios too. It really does come down to memorization. But, it should make sense from an intuitive standpoint too. And it kind of does. Okay. If the Cubs win, they should receive their reward. But if they don't receive their reward, well, it seems like something's off here, correct? That's why it seems like the second possible scenario would be false. All right. So that kind of intuitively makes sense. All right. How about the biconditional? The if and only if statement. When is it true and when is it false? Well, remember, a biconditional statement, unlike a conditional statement, is a two-way street. It runs basically in both directions. So to say P if and only if Q, ladies and gentlemen, is to say synonymously if P then Q and if Q then P, you see. So an if and only if compound statement really is a conjunction of two conditional statements. If P then Q is like going down the road from left to right, and then if Q then P is like coming down the road from right to left. So it's a two-way street. Okay. Back here, if P then Q is a one-way street. We just go down the street from left to right. That is it. We cannot come back. All right. Okay. Now, since the biconditional is a conjunction, ladies and gentlemen, we got to pay attention to this. What does it mean for this to be a conjunction? Do you remember in general when a conjunction was true? Let's go back in our thinking here. When was this true? What was the only situation in which a conjunction was true? Does anybody remember?
When both statements are true.
That's right. When both simple component statements are true, the conjunction statement is true. If, any one of these component statements are false, these simple statements are false, the whole conjunctive statement is false. So in order for this whole thing to be true, for this biconditional to be true, this has to be what? True. And this statement has to be true. If that's the case, then the whole biconditional statement is true. Otherwise, it's always false. Okay? Always false. All right. So does that make sense? There's this. We're going to look at the formal truth table in a moment for the biconditional, but intuitively, does that make sense? It ties into something we learned earlier in this presentation. For this compound and statement to be true, both the component statements have to be true. If just one of these component statements is false, the whole compound and statement or compound conjunctive statement is false. All right, let's look at the this breakdown here. Why would this be the case? Well, case one, if both statements P and Q are true, think about it. If P and Q are true, then, ladies and gentlemen, if P then Q would be true. Do you agree? Based on what we just seen with the conditional. And you agree that if Q then P would be true. Do you agree?
Yes.
So if both statements P and Q are true, then we could say that the simple component statements, this statement would be true, and this statement would be true. And therefore, the conjunctive statement would also be what? True. So yeah, if both simple statements P and Q are true, then the biconditional is true. It's true. Case 2. If P is true and Q is false, if P is true and Q is false, would this conditional statement be true or false based on what we've seen in the previous slide? If the antecedent is true and the consequent is false, would this be true or false?
False.
Remember, it was false. Do you agree?
Yes.
And that was the only case in which the conditional was false. Do you agree?
Yes.
Would this statement be true or false if P is true and Q is false? In other
Yeah,
words, this is false. If this is false, but this is true, remember how this one worked. This was still what? True. Remember, conditional is only false when what? P is what? True.
True.
P is true, but Q is what? False.
False.
That's the only time a conditional is false. So I have a question, ladies and gentlemen. If one of these statements is false, P then Q is false, but Q then P is true, would the biconditional be true or false since it's an and? What do you think? In other words, if P then Q, you know what? This is a typo here. This should be a Q. If P then Q is false and Q then P is true, would this compound conditional state, compound conjunctive statement be true or false?
True.
False and true. When was the only time a conjunctive statement is true?
When they both true.
Yeah, when the both statements are true, okay? But since one of our statements here, P then Q is false, the biconditional statement in this situation would be false. It would be false. Case 3, if P is false and Q is true, well, ladies and gentlemen, if P is false and Q is true, would this statement be true or false? If P is false and Q is true.
It'll be false.
Okay, if P is false and Q is what? True. Was the conditional statement true or false?
True.
It's true. When was the only time the conditional statement was false again? If P is true, but Q is what? False.
False.
Then Q is false. But this would be true. But how about the reverse? Would the reverse be true or false? If Q, then P. If P is true, but Q is what? Well, excuse me, P is false, but Q is true. So if Q is true, but P is what? False. Would this be true or false?
False.
False.
That is correct. Q then P would be false. So would the biconditional be true or false? If this is true and this is false. If this is true and this is false, the whole biconditional would be what?
False.
False.
Biconditional has what? And in it. You agree? Has and.
Mm-hmm.
Both statements have to be true for the whole biconditional to be true. Finally, if P is false and Q is false. If P is false and Q is false. If this is false and this is false, would P then Q be true or false? Do you remember? If P then Q.
True.
That would be true. If Q is false and P is false, would this biconditional if Q then P be true or false?
False.
No, if both
I mean,
statements
true.
would be true. So what would be the biconditional? True and true. Would it be true or false? True and true.
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 True and true would be true. That's right. All right. So the biconditional is a little bit more slippery, ladies and gentlemen, as we can see. But just remember that both these conditional statements have to be true for the whole biconditional to be true. P then Q has to be true, and Q then P has to be true. Again, this is a typo here. This should be P then Q here, and Q then P. It's a little silly little typo there, okay? Let's try to construct the truth table now for the biconditional. All right, statement P takes on the values of true, true, false, false. Statement Q, true, false, true, false. All right, here's the first scenario, the first case. If P is true and Q is true, is the biconditional true?
Yes.
It is true. If statement P is true and statement Q is false, is the biconditional true or false?
False.
That'd be false because P then Q is false, correct?
Yes.
We don't care about Q then P because this is an and, remember. All right, now if P is false and Q is true, would the biconditional be true or false?
False.
False, because if Q then P would be false. Do you agree? Not if P then Q. If P then Q would be true, but if Q then P would be false. And a biconditional is and, requires both statements to be true. So it would be false. Finally, if both P and Q are false, do you agree that if P then Q would be true, and if Q then P would be true? Isn't that true?
Yes.
That's why the whole biconditional would be true. So let's just see if we can, summarize this in our minds here. Let's just see here. So, ladies and gentlemen, when is the biconditional true? It's true under two conditions. It's only true if both simple statements have the same truth value. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. If both P and Q are true, the biconditional is true. If both P and Q are both false, the biconditional is true. If they have opposite truth values, P and Q, then the biconditional is always false. That's how you remember it. So again, a biconditional is only true if both simple statements have the same truth value. Otherwise, it's always false. That's a nice way to remember it.
Can you say that again, please?
So if both simple statements, P and Q, have the same truth value, in other words, if they're both true, the biconditional is true, or if they're both false, the biconditional is true. If the simple statements have opposite truth values, either P is true, Q is false, or vice versa, then the biconditional is what? False.
False.
Does that make sense a little bit more now?
Yes.
For the biconditional to be true, both P and Q statements have to have the same truth value. Okay, they have to both be true or they have to both be false. That's it. All right, so that's not too bad if you think of it from that perspective. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's try to construct the truth table for P or Q. Now, P can take on the values of true or false, and since there's combinations between P and Q's truth values, we always, represent P's values as being true, true, false, false in our table. Q's values, we alternate true, false, true, false. Always use this convention. That's the convention used in your textbook, okay? Now, or. Does or require that both P and Q be true for the whole statement to be true?
Yes.
Now, and did. Do you agree?
Yes.
And
I agree, and.
that both P and Q must be what? True. For the whole and to be what? True. But does or require that both P and Q be true for the whole statement?
No.
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 Is no.
One or the other.
That's right. One or the other. One or the other, or what? Both. Do you agree?
Or both.
Yes.
Could be true for the whole or to be true. So or is less picky, if you will, or less restrictive than and is. And is very stringent. It requires that both P and Q to be true for the whole and statement to be true. If just one of the simple statements is false, one and or both are false, the whole thing's false. Or turns the tables 180 degrees. Or just requires that at least one of your simple statements be true, one and or both be true, okay, in order for the whole thing to be true. When would an or be false then? When's the only time an or would be false?
When both are false.
Both false.
It seems like the only time that an or would be false is if both simple statements are false. If they're both false, then it seems like the or would then take on its only false value. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's see if we can, you know what? They didn't do the truth table on this one yet. Okay, I think we will get to this though. All right, anyways, suppose, ladies and gentlemen, that we want to find the truth values for the negation of P. You know what? This should be the tilde symbol in front of P, the tilde symbol in front of P. They did get it right in the table at least. Okay. So I don't know, these PowerPoint slides got little tisk things once in a while. That should be a tilde symbol there. That should be a tilde symbol there. Now, I did make this PowerPoint presentation before class some of you indicated that you wanted that so that you could print these out and make like addendums on them, correct? Like make
Yes.
little additions or whatever. So I'll try to do that in the future from now on so that you can have them at your disposal as I go through the lecture. Yeah, there should be a little tilde symbol in front of P here, and also at the end of this statement here should be a tilde statement, still tilde symbol, not colons, but tilde symbol. All right. Suppose that of course, P takes on its values true or false. Q takes on its values true or false. How about the first statement? Excuse me. How about the first statement for the last column? They form another column, which is the negation of statement P. Does the last column have anything to do with the Q column, the statement Q column?
No.
Nothing to do with it in this situation, correct? So all we do is take the opposite truth value of what P is. So if P is true, the negation of P would be false. If P is true, the negation of P would be false. If statement P is false, then not P, or the negation of statement P, would be true. All right, that's simple enough, correct?
Yeah.
All right, let's see where they're going with this. Okay, yeah, now here's what they're ultimately driving at. They wanted us to evaluate the truth value of not P or Q. So this is what they really wanted us to evaluate, is the truth value of this compound statement. Not true then, not true. How do we read this? We say not P or what? Q. Agree? Not P or Q. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what would we do first here? If I gave you this compound statement, what would you have to deal with first? When you're trying to determine the truth value of this compound statement, you'd have to deal with the negation of P first. Do you agree?
Yes.
Then you would, or that, if you will, with the Q state, the Q statement truth value. All right. So here's statement P takes on these values of true and false. Q takes on the values true, false, true, false. Notice they have an uppercase P instead of a lowercase p. Another little typo here. There should be a lowercase p. And then they have the column, which is the negation of statement P. All right, now I have a question for you. To wrap this problem up, to determine the truth value of this compound OR statement, we only take or consider, do you agree, the truth values in the second and the third columns. Isn't that true?
Yes.
We take the ORing of these two columns, if you will. All right. Now, notice an OR is always true, provided that what? At least one and or both of your component statements are true. So if Q is true, but not P is false, well, not P or Q is still true. The only time this OR compound statement would be false is when? The only time.
Both statements are false.
That's right. The only time an OR statement's false is if both simple statements are both false. Otherwise, it's always what? Always true. So if you have true or false, it's true. True or true, it's true. False or true, it's true. But if you have false or false, then the OR statement is false.
False.
So that's pretty easy to remember. An OR is only false when both statements are false. Otherwise, it's always true. An AND statement is always true only when what?
Both are
Both
all.
statements are true.
Both statements are true. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All
That was
statements
for
are
an AND. All right. That was for an AND, right? Let's just go back and jog our memory quickly for an AND. Where was our AND? There it is. Yeah. Notice an AND statement's only true when both statements are true, but is false for all their scenarios. Or on the other hand, how did it work? Or is always true, but only false when both statements are false. So it's kind of like the opposite of AND. It's literally kind of like the opposite of the AND. All right, here we go. All right, they want us to construct a truth table in order to evaluate the truth value of this statement here, which is, how would we even read this statement? Anybody want to read it for us? Well, it's the negation
Negation
of
of P.
if P, then what? Not Q, correct? It's the negation of if P, then not Q. All right. Or it's like not if P, then not Q. All right. I have a question, Liz. What would you think would be the order of operations, if you will, for evaluating the truth value of this compound statement? Because it is a complicated statement. What do you
You have
think?
to start with the negation.
Yeah, we would be inside the parentheses first. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of
Would you
like-
start with the negation of Q?
That's right. We would be inside the parentheses first, but we don't deal with the conditional first. We deal with the negation of Q first. Then we would deal with the conditional. In other words, if P, then, not Q. Then we would go outside the parentheses and deal with the negation of the entire quantity last. That would be the order in which we proceed. So in other words, the order would be this. First, you deal with the negation here. That would be step number 1. Step number 2 is you deal with the conditional inside the parentheses. And step number 3, then you would deal with the negation outside the parentheses last. That'd be the order of operations in a way. All right, in that order. So to make a truth table, obviously we put our statements P and Q. Then we would have the negation of Q. And then what column would I add next then? What do you think? What would be the next column if we had to predict?
The negation of P.
Yeah, we would have P arrow what? Not Q. Do you agree? We would have this as being our next column. Isn't that true? And then the final column would be what? The negation of the what? The next to the last column. Isn't that true? Let's see if they follow that convention here. Yes, they did. See the next column? It's exactly what I thought it would be. It was the column if P, then not Q. That's the next column. Okay, what would be the true, what are they doing here? What happened to my Q column here? Well, they're just showing you how to determine the truth values of the last column, which is if P, then not Q. Ladies and gentlemen, when is an if then true and when is it false? Do we remember? See, it really always comes down to can we remember? Do you remember when if P then true, if P then Q is true in general? Do we remember that? If P then Q. It was always true except for what scenario? What was the only scenario in which this was false? Does anybody remember?
If both were false?
No, not if both are false. If how did that work? It worked this way. If the antecedent was true, but the consequence was what? False. Then you agree this whole statement is what? False. Otherwise, it's always what? True. It's true. So when would this be false? If P, then not Q. That would occur if the first statement is true and the second statement is false. That's the only time this conditional would be false. Otherwise, it's always what? Always true. Statement P is true, and if statement not Q is true, then if P, then not Q would be true. If statement P is false and statement not Q is false, then if P, then not Q would be true. If statement P is false and statement not Q is true, then if P, then not Q would be what? True. The only time it's going to be false is if statement P is true, but if not Q statement is false, then the conditional is false. So like I said, it is going to take a little bit of work to solidify all this in our minds because there is a lot. We covered a lot here. By the way, another little typo. This should be what? A tilde symbol here instead of a colon. Okay, that should be a tilde symbol. That should be not Q. This should be what? Not Q. That should be a tilde symbol also. For some silly reason, when they constructed the PowerPoint, I did not make these PowerPoints, but when they made the PowerPoints, somehow they injected these little mistakes here from time to time. Okay, so that's why probably it would be wise to print these out or have these at your disposal where you can make corrective changes. You can even download the PowerPoint. I think you can even edit the PowerPoint, can't you? I think you can edit the PowerPoint. I was successful in editing portions of the PowerPoint, so I think you could do that. If you wanted a hard copy, just print it out on paper and make corrective changes. All right, we good on that one? But hey, have we answered this entire question here? No, because we're trying to evaluate the truth what statement of this, aren't we? So we have to have one last column. And the last column will literally be the negation of what column? The negation of what column?
The
last one.
The last column, yeah. It's going to be the negation of this last column here. That's all we have to do is negate these truth values. So to negate false means it would be true. To negate true means that these would be false.
False.
We do. We just negate the previous column and we got the truth value of the entire compound statement. So do you see how we chip away at these complicated statements later on? We don't do it all at once. There's no way. It's too complicated. We chip away at it column by column in our truth table. And eventually we build up eventually to our overall compound statement whose truth value we were trying to determine. That's how we do it with truth tables. We do it by column, okay, and build up to our ultimate statement. That's how you do it. Yeah, don't try to do it all at once. It's going to be too complicated, okay?
So in the homework or the classwork, will it be actual statements that we'll have to go by, or we'll have to go by memory of?
Yeah, they may be statements, but you know what? It could just be all what? Literally just P's and Q's. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like it is here. Literally, literally just P's and Q's. I'm looking at like the practice problems at the end of your section, your textbook, and there's a whole slew of problems. There's like 30, gosh, like 35 problems that just deal with the P's and the Q's and the R's, okay? There could be a third component statement, R. We haven't got to that yet. But yeah, a lot of it's just P, Q's, and R's. And so, you know, really it is going to come down to what? Memorization. Do you agree?
Yeah.
It really is going to come down to memorizing, you know, when is a P or Q true or false? When is a P and Q true or false? When is a if P then Q statement false or true? Or when is a biconditional P if and only if Q statement is true? It ultimately is going to come down to memory. You know, it really is. Because we're not going to have statements, unfortunately, for a lot of these problems here. Oh, yeah. What if we do have a third component statement, ladies and gentlemen? What if we have a statement R entering into the picture in addition to like P and Q? You know, this is analogous to going to just having 2 circles in a Venn diagram to having what? 3 circles. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
It's analogous to that. More complicated. But it can still be negotiated nicely with truth tables. That's the beauty of truth tables. Truth tables take the sting out of having to try to muscle these out in your mind, ladies and gentlemen. Without a truth table, it would be very, very difficult. And our minds would get all tangled up. Truth tables are critical in keeping things organized, okay? All right, now here we go. Suppose that we do have this complicated compound statement, which reads how? How do we even read this statement? Well, we would say P
Or
if Q, then what? R. All right. So P or if Q, then R. That's how we read this. Now I have a question for you. Order of operations, if you will. What would we deal with first?
the parentheses.
That's right. We go inside the parentheses and we would deal with the conditional first. Then we would deal with the what? The or last. Does that make sense? That'd be the order of operations, the order in which you pursue this with your columns of your truth table. All right, so therefore, to determine the truth value of this complicated statement, notice now, ladies and gentlemen, check this out. Remember before with P, it was always true, true, false, false. Q was true, false, true, false. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
When we have a third component simple statement, we now have not 4 possible combinations. We have what? We have 8 possible combinations. Everybody see this here?
Yes.
From 4 possible statements, or 4 possible arrangements, I should say, to 8 possible arrangements. So now you should adopt this convention for your P statement. True, 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 4 trues, and then 4 false. For Q, you have 2 trues, true falses on down the line. For R, you alternate true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. Do you see the analogy in a way from having 2 component statements to 3? There is somewhat of an analogy. There's a similarity. Do you agree? See, with 2 statements, we did 2 trues and true false, but now with 3 statements, we do what? 4 trues and 4 falses. Do you agree for P?
So it's just doubled?
It is kind of doubled in a sense everywhere. Notice the Q statement was the last one when he had two statements, which we alternated true and false. Well, the alternation does not occur for the last statement R now, you see, where the
Yeah.
Q statement just, goes from having 4 trues and 4 falses to 2 trues and 2 falses. In other words, yeah, it kind of doubles. Do you agree? It kind of like doubles. All right. So this is the convention that you would probably want to adopt or get in the habit of. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, there's really nothing sacred about this ordering. The bottom line is you have to have 4 possible combinations for two statements, and you have to have 8 for 3. The order in which you list these rows is really not really critically important. This is kind of like the convention adopted by this textbook, though. All right. So true, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. But if you have 3 statements, true, 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 false, 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 true, true, false, false, true, true, false, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. Okay. That'll be the convention. All right. Now here we go. Remember, what do we have to do first again? We had to do the what?
Parentheses.
Yeah, we have to do if Q then R. We have to do the conditional. So what would be my next column that I add on to this truth table? My next column.
Will be or.
It's going to be this. Do you agree?
Yes,
That'll have to be the column heading for our next column. And then the column after that will deal with the what?
Or.
Or it'll
Or.
be this whole thing then. Does that make sense for the last column? All right. So that's the way we pursue this. So in other words, we're going to add on if Q then R for our next column. And there it is. It's been added on. Now, I got a question for you. Why did they leave the P column blank for the purposes of this next truth table? Why did they, blank out the P column? Why do you think they did?
Is it because, go ahead.
Everything shifts right?
No, look at it. The reason why is because to populate the last column, do we even need to know what P is?
No.
No.
No, the last column only depends on what? Q and R, doesn't it?
Yes.
Nothing to do with the P. So that's what your author's doing here. That's why they got rid of all the values in the P column, just to emphasize the fact that we don't care what P is. It's what Q's and R's truth values are, correct? To evaluate the conditional.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they did it. That's the only reason why they did it. Don't get me wrong. The P values are still there. You know what I'm saying? The truth values of P are still there. It's not like we don't erase them, get rid of them. It's just that your author did that on his PowerPoint to emphasize that we only need the truth values of Q and R to determine the truth value of the last column. When is a conditional false? Do you remember? There's only one situation where the conditional is false. When the antecedent is what? True. But the consequence is what?
False.
False. That's the only time, ladies and gentlemen, that a conditional is what? False. Otherwise, it's always what? True. Okay. So do you agree true and true for the first row has true?
Yes.
True, false. Oh, here's a situation if Q is true, but R is false. The antecedent is true, but the consequence is false. The conditional is false. Why it's false. False, true, false, true, true, false. Here's another one. Do you agree?
Yeah.
If the antecedent is true, but the consequence is false, then the conditional is what? False.
False.
Otherwise, it's always what? True.
True.
That makes sense. All right. All right. Boy, I tell you, we're burning the midnight oil on these truth tables. Okay. They're wearing out their welcome quick. Do you agree? All right.
Yes.
Now, but hold on. We're almost done. That's the good news. Well, with the PowerPoint. Okay. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, hey, are we done evaluating our statement we were asked to evaluate?
No.
No. We were asked
Well,
to
for that
evaluate
part,
P. Yeah, we're done with the Q, if Q then R. We still got to do the P or the what if Q then R, correct?
yeah.
So what column am I going to add on at the end here? At the end, I'm going to add on the whole statement now. Do you agree? P or
Yes.
Q then R. We're ready for that now. And there it is. To add on the last column. But do you agree the last column only requires that we pay attention to the what? The first and the what? The fourth columns?
Yes.
Again, your author's doing this weird thing. They got rid of the values in Q and R column just to emphasize that we don't care what the Q and R values are. We just care what the truth values are for the first and the fourth column to finally fill out the truth values of our ultimate statement. Make sense? Now, when is an OR true and when is an OR false? OR is always true unless when?
Both are false.
Both
If
are
both
false.
statements are false. There you go. So this OR statement will only be false when what? Both statements are what?
False.
Otherwise, it's always what? Always true.
True.
Is that making sense? How we negotiated column by column by column, and we built up to ultimately find the truth values of this complicated compound statement here. See how we do it by column by column?
Yes.
Yes.
Build up to it, okay? That's exactly how you negotiate these. Now, when we do our problems in our book, are we going to omit column P's truth values in doing this?
Not unless we have to
No,
fork.
no, we don't omit column P's truth values in doing this. We just need to realize that we only have to use Q and R as truth values to get the last column here. And here we don't eliminate the Q and R truth values if we actually work a problem out manually in our textbook. We only have to realize we only use the first and the fourth columns, of course, to populate the truth values of the last column. But you don't actually have to get rid of the Q and the R columns, right? Your author did that to emphasize the columns that are to be focused on. All right. So here we go. All right. Anyway, so we're done with that problem. And ladies and gentlemen, this is showing the hierarchy, if you will, or the order of operations as far as connectives are concerned. You always do negations first. Notice, look at this. We always do negations first. Oh, wait a minute. What takes precedence even over, above, and beyond all of these? What would be like step like numero uno? We always do things inside what first?
The parentheses.
Parentheses first. But inside parentheses, if you have a negation, you do the negation first. Then if you have an or an and inside the parentheses, an and or an or, excuse me, you do those next. If you have a conditional inside the parentheses, you do then that next. Finally, the biconditional is the last thing that you tackle. It has the lowest level of precedence, if you will. Okay, so the level of precedence decreases from top down here as far as the level of importance is concerned. Is that clear? This is the order in which we should pursue these connectives here. Always do start inside parentheses first and then pursue these connectives in this order. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Now this slide's a little confusing, at least it was when I first read it. It says, using the hierarchy of connectives, for each, identify the type of statement using the hierarchy of connectives and rewrite by using parentheses to indicate order. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe, yeah, there's supposed to be tilde symbols inside these little boxes. A tilde here, a negation in here, a negation in here. Okay. Another little typo. These should be negations. All right. Now I have a question for you. Order of operations or hierarchy. What would we do first in this statement here? Would we deal with the or would we deal with the negations first? What do you think?
Negations.
The
Yeah.
or. Oh.
Well, let's go back. We're forgetting already. Let's see. Oh, it was then what? The negations first, then the what? The ors. Do you agree?
Yes.
Looks like we have to deal with the negation of P and Q first, then we worry about the or last. So to represent the order of precedence by using parentheses to emphasize the order, I think this statement would have the parentheses being placed around the what? The negations first. Do you agree? Yeah, the parentheses would be placed around the negations first to emphasize that we would do those first, and then the or would be done last. Make sense?
Yes.
All right, how about this next statement? Do we deal with the conditional first, or do we deal with the and first, or the negation of Q first? What type of order?
The negation of Q first.
Negation of Q.
Yeah, we deal with the negation of Q first, then the what?
And
Then the and then the what?
The by.
If,
The
if
condition,
then.
the conditional.
If
That's right.
then.
You are correct. We deal with negation number 1 and number 2, and we deal with the conditional last. Okay. So using parentheses, how would we, indicate this precedence? Where would we put the parentheses first here?
Parentheses for the negation of the Q.
Yeah, we would put, okay, so we would put that kind of in parentheses here. That would emphasize we do this first. Then we do
And
the
then
what?
the or.
Well, we do the and, correct?
The R.
The
So we
or.
would put this inside parentheses. Do you agree?
Oh,
So do you agree what's going on here? We have embedded parentheses. So we do the negation first, right? And then we do the what? The and. Then we do the what?
If then.
The conditional, the if then. There you go. These parentheses would indicate the order of precedence. We do the negation first, then the and, then the what? The if then, the conditional. Is this making sense with the parentheses in emphasizing order here? The parentheses.
So when we do the negation of other variable, we have
Yeah,
to.
we do the negation of statement Q first, then we would what? And that with statement R. Then we would find the truth values of the statement if P, then what? That, correct?
Okay.
All right. How about C? Where would the precedence lie? Do we deal with the ors first or the biconditional?
The
The
or.
ors.
Yeah, the biconditional was at the very bottom. Do you agree? That's the last thing you tackle as far as precedence is concerned. So yeah, we definitely do the ors here first. So therefore, to emphasize that using parentheses, we would put parentheses around P or Q. That means we would do that first. We would also do the what? The Q then, Q or R first. Then we'll deal with the what last? The biconditional, the if and only if, correct? We'll deal with that last. That would be the order of precedence. Finally, where do the parentheses go here to emphasize order? Do we deal with the conditional first or the biconditional first?
conditional.
Conditional.
Yeah, notice the conditional is even above the biconditional. It has precedence over the biconditional. So yeah, I mean, therefore, we're gonna do the conditional first. We would actually do, ladies and gentlemen, this first. Then last, we would do the what? The biconditional.
Conditional.
That would be how you emphasize it using parentheses. Yep, the order of precedence. Okay. All right. We're almost done here. This is just emphasizing everything that I've already said. Do you agree? Make sure in these boxes you put little tildes. There should be negations in here. Okay. And everything else looks good. Do you agree? Everything else looks good with the parentheses like I put them? Oh, this should be a little negation here, a little tilde symbol. I don't know, these little typos here. Kind of annoying. But that's what it would be. All right. Here's the last problem they want us to play around with. Now, somebody asked, would we ever actually have statements for P and Q and R? Like everyday run-of-the-mill statements that humans can understand. Yeah, here's an example. Suppose statement P represents the statement that streaming music accounts for most of music sales. Do you think that's true or false in today's age? Statement P. Streaming music. I think statement P is true or false in today's world.
True.
Yeah, I'd say it's true. I mean, do you agree? I mean, we're always streaming something on YouTube or whatever. Okay. How about statement Q? Is statement Q true or false in today's age? Vinyl LPs are no longer widely available. Anybody remember the old records, the old record players?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I have to say yes, because that's exposing my age, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to tell you my age because I was born in 1964. Oh, son of a gun. All right. Hopefully you can't do arithmetic. All right. Anyways, you can tell that obviously I grew up in the age when, yeah, there were old time record players and vinyl records, you know, but then I seen the transition to, how did the transition go? It went to, let's see, from old time records, then it went to, what's that?
CDs, laser discs,
CDs, yeah, CDs, and then it went
or
to,
cassettes, one of the two.
yeah, and it just kept going from there.
It actually went to 8 tracks.
Yeah, no, you're right. You know, I remember the old 8-track tapes back in the 1970s. You know, my dad actually had a John Denver tape. He was listening to John Denver back in 1973 on an 8-track tape with an 8-track tape player in his Barracuda. That cost right on. You ready for this? You know how much the brand new Barracuda cost off the assembly line in 1973? Anybody want to take a guess? A brand new vehicle off the assembly line in 1973. How much?
Probably about 3,500, 4,500.
Gosh, you're very close. It was $3,000. Ladies and gentlemen, you could buy a brand new vehicle off the assembly line for $3,000. Now, what is it now? $30,000 and up? You agree?
You're
You
lucky.
can tell how times have changed. How did I get on this topic? Oh, my age. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, records are a dinosaur, ladies and gentlemen. How about statement R? So statement Q is probably false, correct? How about statement R? Digital music downloads are available through Apple and Google. Is that true or false, do you think?
True.
Probably a true statement in today's age. Okay, so P is true, Q is probably what? False, and R is what? True.
True.
Okay, so we'll go on that assumption here. So how would we evaluate the truth value of this statement? P or Q, if P or Q, then R. What would we do first? Order of operations, if you will, hierarchy of
Or
Or.
four. Okay, so remember how this worked. We said P was true, Q statement was false, and R is true.
true.
So what would be true or false? What's the truth value of true or false?
They're both true
Both
or true.
Yeah, for a true or false, this whole or would be what? True or false?
true.
It would
True.
be true. That's right. Remember, or is only false if both statements are what? False, correct? So here we go. Then would this statement be true or false to say if true, then true? True or false for the conditional? If true, then true.
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 And true.
Remember, the conditional is only false if what? The antecedent is true and the consequence is what?
Consequence?
False.
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 You agree that's the only time the conditional is false. Recall?
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. There's the last slide that indicates that yes, the implication, ladies and gentlemen, would be true based on our line of reasoning. And we did not really even need a truth table for that one. Do you agree? Because
Yeah.
it was just one statement, wasn't it? It was just one statement here. Knowing that P, Q and R are true, false, and true, respectively. And we're done with this. Okay, let's go have some fun in our textbook before we run out of time. All right. Hopefully we can access our textbook today. Wrong class. My mistake. Hold on a second. All right, here we go. All right, I want to do a couple problems or have you do a couple, maybe a couple for classwork. If you have something to write with, get that handy and something to write on. We're gonna have a little bit of fun here. All right, we're gonna go to section 3.2. And we're gonna work with some truth tables. Okay. All right, let's go down where the homework begins or the textbook problems begin. Way on down, way on. Okay, here we go. All right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have you do problem number 7 for classwork number 1. We'll call this classwork 1. They want you to basically construct a truth table for this compound statement, a truth table. We'll call that classwork 1. I'll give you time to work on that. Go ahead and do that. Remember, there's only 2 component statements, P and Q. So P is going to be true, true, false, false. Q is going to be true, false, true, false. Go ahead and put that together. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We build our table. So statement P, true, true, false, false. Statement Q, true, false, true, false. Now we do the or before we do the what? The negation, because or is inside the what? The parentheses. Notice we got to do this first. So remember, when is an or false? It's only false when the two statements P and Q are what? False. Do you agree?
Both false.
Otherwise, it's always true. Isn't that correct?
Yep.
Finally, the last column has us building up to the ultimate problem they wanted us to do. And we just negate the previous column. We just got to negate these values. And we got our answer. The negation of true is false. Negation of true, false. Negation of true, false. Negation of false, true. This is your answer. These are the truth values of this statement. Did anybody actually get that correct with the truth table?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. That was a pretty simple one. Do you agree? Do you think they're always going to be that easy?
No.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah. Now there's bigger fish to fry in here. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to do, oh, we can check the answer there. Do you agree it's false, false, true, true? It's false, 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 true. Do you agree for the last column? See how they got the answer here? They only give you the last column. All right.
Okay. Yep.
That's it. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to do number 9 for classwork 1. We'll continue to call this classwork 1. You know, in reality, do you think it matters whether we call it classwork 1 or 2 or 3 or 1 million? No, because you send it all to me anyways. Do you agree? Let's do number 9. All right, go ahead. Make a truth table for number 9. All right, number 9. Statement P, statement Q. What do we do first? Do we do the negation of P or the and first? Which one?
Negation.
Negation of P. That's why I put this column next. Negating column P is simple. The negation of true is false. Negation of true is false. Negation of false is true. Negation of false is true. That column's done. Now we deal with the and. So now we just basically take the and of these two columns. And the only time an and is false is if both what? These statements are false. I'm sorry, the only time an and is true, excuse me, is if both these statements are true. That only occurs right here. Otherwise, it's always what? It's always false.
False.
There you go. Did we get that there? Okay. Are these truth tables making any sense? He's pretty easy so far. Not too bad. These are pretty simple so far, aren't they? Do you agree? Well, I mean, these are really not that bad yet. Let's see. Let's see what kind of trouble awaits us though.
They're not too bad, but more of I'm trying to figure out how you got tilde in P and then I'm just
Well,
like,
the negation of P, we use what? This column. We negate this column. So the negation of true is false.
what I'm getting at is I kind of set up the second problem like the first problem, as in like setting up P, Q, PQ, but then I inverted the sign because it was a different problem. So what I'm getting at is I don't understand how.
No.
Can you pull up the question real quick?
Well, here's number 7. Oh, number 7?
Yeah, because I'm still trying to figure out how you even got your columns.
There it is. We
No,
always
no.
start with the column P and Q. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about number 9.
All right. So we start with columns P and Q always. Okay. If we have two.
Right.
Now, what do we do first? Order of operations. Do I deal with the negation of P or the and?
The negation.
Don't we do negations before ands or ors? Isn't that true?
Yeah.
So that's why my next column after Q would be what? Not P.
Okay.
That's my next column, not P, because that's what we do next. Do you agree? Order of operations.
Yes.
Then we deal with the what? The and last. Do you agree?
Yes. Okay. Now I understand how you got
So
the
what also
negation.
threw me off, because I did it the same way, it was the
Yeah, me
parentheses. It was the parentheses that threw me off. So
Yeah.
that's what. Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, there's no parentheses here, but look, if there are no parentheses, then we default according to that hierarchy we've seen on that slide.
Right. I got
Right?
you.
That's why we do the negation of P first, and then the what and next. So that hierarchy is kind of important. Do you agree? Through kind of memorize that slide. Okay. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if there are no parentheses, then we do what? Negations, and then we do what? Ands and ors. Then we do the what? Conditional, and then the last
And
the
then
what?
biconditional.
Okay, in that order. All right, good. Try number 10. Try number 10 first. This is all classwork 1. Just keep a running tab on classwork 1. Number 10, build a truth table. I have a question for you. What would be the order in which we pursue these things here? What are we going to do here?
The negations.
Do the negations first, then the what?
And
Then the conditional, right?
yeah.
Last. All right, do that last. All right, go ahead. See if you can build the truth table, number 10. Technically, does it matter whether you negate Q first or P first? Does it really matter, do you think?
It doesn't matter, but I was just thinking
Yeah.
that as I
You
came
can
across.
work, yeah, but maybe work from left to right. So have a negate Q column next, then a negate P column after that. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, this is fucking hard.
Okay, let's analyze this. We have our P column and our Q column. You agree? That's like standard when you have two statements. Now, we're going to do the negation of Q first. Hierarchy of operations. I have that for my next column. We just negate the Q column. Negation of true is false. Negation of false is true. Negation of true is false. Negation of false is true. Done with that. Now we have another column where we form the negation of P. That becomes our next column. In which case we just negate all the truth values in the P column. Negation of true, false. Negation of true, false. Negation of false, true. Negation of false, true. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we deal with the conditional. So now we're going to deal with if this column, then what? This column. If this, then this. When is a conditional false? It's only false when what? What's true? When is a conditional false? It's only false when the antecedent is what? True. When this is true, and this is what? The consequence is false. That's the only time it's false. Other than that, it's always true. You see how I negotiated it there? Everybody see how I did that there? So your answer is in the last column. These are the truth values of this statement that they wanted us to, evaluate, if you will.
When you get a moment, can you put up the question?
Oh yeah, number 10.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
it's the question is evaluating, if not Q, then what? Not P, correct? That's the question.
So from the equation, you would just take every section. So you would just take your traditional P, your traditional
But
Q,
you gotta have a P and Q column. Yep.
Yep, and then you're gonna take your not Q
Not
and your
Q would be the
not,
next column. Yep.
and then your not P,
Not P would
and
be the next column.
then you would just combine the whole thing into
That's
its
right.
own
Then the conditional
column.
at the end. You are correct.
Okay, so follow-up question to that. For number 7, then,
Yeah, number 7. Back over here.
can you go back to the equation in
All
the
right, number
textbook?
7 is right here. It
Okay,
reads
so then
not P or Q. Do you agree? So we have our P column and our Q column, correct?
right, yeah, your traditional P and Q.
What would be your next column then? What do we do first?
It would be the parentheses.
Yeah, we do the or. That would be the next column would be P or Q, correct? Next column.
Oh, so I guess what I'm trying to understand is when to column stuff and when not to. I think that is my biggest thing I'm trying to get a hang
Well, we
of.
stop. Our last column is the ultimate statement, the whole statement we're looking at. Okay, that when we reach the whole statement, okay, evaluating the whole statement, that's our last column. Okay, so the next column we add on after Q would be what? P or Q. Let's go take a look at it here. So we add on after Q, we add on what? P or Q, right? We take the or of these statements.
Yeah, okay. I see how you got the
And then
orders of
at
the
the end,
statement.
we then what? Negate. You agree? This column.
Yeah.
We have our overall statement, and that's why this is the last column. That makes sense? That's it.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, with practice, ladies and gentlemen, this will start to come into focus. It requires a lot of practice. It really does. But I'll give you a appreciable number of problems on Alex, to practice. You can also practice some in your textbook. Hey, I think you have the answers, ladies and gentlemen, to the odd problems in your textbook. Do you agree? The odds. If you want to do some odd problems in your textbook, by all means, go ahead and do some odd problems. All right, here's a challenge problem. The next one we will try to tackle is number 11. Now, this is a biconditional, isn't it? A biconditional. So what order are we going to form our columns here? Does anybody have an idea what order we would form our columns? Well, we're going to have our P and our what?
The negation of P.
Yeah, you got to have your P and Q, right? You
Yeah.
have your P and Q. All right, now what would be the next column after P and Q?
Wouldn't it be the negation of
That's right. You got
P?
Negation of P. That'd be the next column. Now, do you remember what a biconditional is all about though? Do we remember that? You remember, ladies and gentlemen, a biconditional is really an and statement, isn't it? It says, if not P, then what? Q. If not P, then Q. And if what? Q, then what? Not P. Do you agree? Isn't that what a biconditional is all about?
Yes.
So what would be my next column?
Wouldn't it be,
It would be what? This.
The
Do you
first
agree?
section, yeah.
It would be this. This would be your next column. You'd have to evaluate the condition, this conditional. Then what would be your next column after that? It would be evaluating this.
The other conditional.
That's right. Evaluating if P, then not Q. You'd have to evaluate this conditional. This is a Q here. Then what would be my last column?
The original problem.
The and, do you agree? The anding of these two columns. Your last column, ladies and gentlemen, is literally going to be what? This whole statement. Do you agree? That'll be your last column. True? The anding, correct? The anding of the two previous columns. That's all there is. And
That's what biconditionals.
Yep, it's a biconditional. That's what a biconditional is. All right.
So basically, okay.
All right, go ahead. I filled the table column headings out for you in the respective order. Let's see if you can actually populate it and get this last column here so we can evaluate this whole thing here. Okay, go ahead. That'll be part of class. Yep, question?
Yeah, I just had a quick one. Just a few moments ago, you gave a really good definition of conditional. And I was trying to write it down.
Yeah, it goes like this. If you in general have a conditional P, if P, then Q, right? When is the only time a conditional is false? It's false only when the antecedent is what? True. And the consequence is what? False.
False.
That's the only time a conditional is false. Otherwise, it's always what?
True.
There you go. Write that down.
All right, thank you.
All right, there you go. All right, see if you can finish this problem number 11 now. Okay. So I populated the column headings for ourselves in the proper order. And it's just a matter of going through and, filling out each column individually. We got our traditional P and Q columns here. Now, this is the negation of P. It's that simple. We just negate P. You just negate the truth values of the P column. That's all you do. Okay.
Boring as hell.
Now,
I'm doing like 1,000 other things.
this column here, what I do is I
love feeling like that as soon as we finish something and we're just like, never again.
Okay, now this column, ladies and gentlemen, I have a conditional. And the only time this is going to be false is if this statement is what? True. And this statement is what? False. Do you agree? Isn't that the only time? So where is this statement true? It's true right here. But this statement has to be what? False. The only time if not P then Q is false is if not P is true and Q is false. I'm using the wrong columns. The only time if not P then Q will be false is if not P is true and Q is false. So true, if not P is true, Q is false. That's why this conditional is only false right here for this situation. Because if not P is true, right? And Q is what? False. Other than that, it's always what? True. Correct? True. If Q then not P is only false if Q is true and not P is what? False. So where is Q true and where is not P false? Where is Q true and where is not P false? Oh, it's right here. That's why this is false. There is no other situation where Q is true and not P is false. So it's only false for this situation here. Other than that, it's true for all the other scenarios. Finally, the last column takes the and of the two previous columns, the and. In order for an and to be true, both statements must be true. True, 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 true. Other than that, it's false. Do we understand how we basically broke that down?
Nah,
So no, it was
absolutely not.
But I mean, I have to do some more studying. I'll eventually get it, but I'm not even. I'm lost. I'm so lost.
Well, do we understand how I put the columns together first of all?
Yeah,
well, even with that, yeah.
The first three make
we
sense
understand
to me,
how
but
I
the rest don't.
column.
Right.
Do we understand how I populated this column here?
Correct.
Just a negation of this column, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I got that part.
That one's simple. This is an if-then. Do you agree? It's a conditional. When is an if-then false? If the first statement is true and the second statement is what? False. Other than that, it's always true.
Okay.
So when is this statement true and this statement false? When is not P true? Right here and here. Do you agree? Not P is true here and here.
Correct.
But when is Q false for these situations? Oh, right here. If not P is true and Q is what? False. If not P is true and Q is what? False. The whole thing is false, correct? If not P is true and Q is false, the whole thing is false. That's why I got false here.
If not P.
Other than that, it's what? True for the other scenarios. Isn't that true? If not P, if it's true and Q is false, If not P is true and Q is false, the whole thing's false. That's the only time it's false. That only occurs with this situation. Isn't that true? True, then false. Whole thing false. True, then true, true. False, then false, true. False, then true, true. It's only false when the first statement is true and the second statement is what?
False.
False. Do we see it now, this column?
Yeah, I see it. But can you give me the definition of that again? Because you said if not P, so yes.
It goes like this. If we have true,
Right.
then false, the whole thing is what? False.
False.
And that's
So
for
if
any.
true, then that's right. If that's for
Okay.
any conditional. If true,
Okay.
then false, then the whole thing is what? False. That's the only time it's false, okay?
If not
That's the
true,
only time a conditional is false.
true.
Other than that, it's always true. So that's why this conditional is only false for when if not P is true and Q is false. True? It's false.
Okay.
When is this one false? It's another conditional. If Q, then what? Not P. Is false only if Q is what? True.
True.
And not P is what? False.
False.
So where is Q true and where is not P false? Where
The
is
second
Q
column.
true? Where is Q true and not P what? False. Do you agree we have it right here? When Q is
Yeah.
true and not P is false? Isn't this thing false then, right? Do we have it anywhere else? If Q is true and not P false, no, it's not here. And that's it. It only occurs here. If Q is true and not P is false, that's the only time this conditional is going to be false. Otherwise, it's what? It's true. So if true, then false is false. If false, then false is true. If true, then true is true. If false, then true is true. If true, then false is what? False. That's the only situation where the conditional is false. If Q is true, not P is what? False. The whole thing is false. Do we see this column now?
Yeah. Now, is they always gonna be reversed like that? So if you reverse it, it should just be the same upside down, right?
Yeah, it kind of looks like we have an inversion here, but be careful on that, all right? I don't know if I want to put my head on the chopping block and say that's a theorem. Now look at this. We got one last thing here. All we got to do is take the and between these two columns. Do you agree? The and, the and, the and. When is and only true?
When both statements are true.
Both statements are true and is true. When both statements are true and is true. Otherwise, it's what?
False.
False, false. There you go. Do we see it a little bit more clearly now? What happened?
A little bit clearer, but it's
Okay,
because
good.
of you.
That was not a waste of time. We accomplished something. Okay. All right. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to require practice. Do you agree?
Yes.
Most
Practice and
definitely.
some thought. Practice and some thought. And obviously memorizing the hierarchy. That helps. That helps immensely. And of course, remembering what? Conditionals, right? When is a conditional false? If true, then false. This is the only time it's what? False, correct?
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
At first, you should. Oh, okay.
When was a biconditional? When was a biconditional true? A biconditional. It's true in only two cases. Otherwise, it's false. Here's the two cases. A biconditional is only true if you have what? True if and only if what? True. That means a biconditional is true, correct?
Yeah.
Or there's another possibility. Wasn't it false if and only if false?
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than that, a biconditional is always what? False. Do you agree? These are the only conditions in which biconditional is true. Write this down. And write this down. That's the conditional. The only time it's false, otherwise it's always true. And this is when a biconditional is true, otherwise it's always false. So yeah, you need to memorize those. just gotta memorize those things there. And that only comes with, reinforcing this in your mind, reviewing every single day. Just running this through your mind. Let's see. When is a conditional false? Okay, it's only false if true, then false, then the conditional is false. When's a biconditional true? If true, if and only if true, and false if and only if false. A biconditional is true. Otherwise, it's always what? It's always false. Okay. But yeah, so there is obvious a little bit of memorization here. I mean, to say there isn't would be lying. Okay. We just need to memorize a couple of these little facts here. All right. Well, let's see here. Clock's a ticking. Now, looky here. How bad are these going to get?
Bad.
But
Plot thickens, does it not? All right. You want to do, I want to demonstrate one, ladies and gentlemen, where we have three component statements, three simple statements. And you know the one I'm going to demonstrate here?
32.
It's going to be number 32. Okay. I'm going to demonstrate this one. This will not be classwork. You can just write this one down and follow along on this one. Okay. I'm going to demonstrate number 32. Now, when you're doing your Alex, a wonderful thing about Alex is if you get stumped with your homework, there's a wonderful button off to the right that says what? Show me an example. Isn't there a button that says that? Show me. You click on that and it'll work. It'll show you all the steps. That's the beautiful thing about Alex. And I give you unlimited attempts at the assignments and I take the highest score. And I think there's no time limit on homework assignments, are there?
No, but it is on that quiz.
Yeah, there are on quizzes, but I think I give you so much time on a quiz that you'd almost have to what? Fall asleep or go unconscious. Do you agree? For about an hour.
That's not true.
Well, no, it's not true.
No.
Let's see. I still don't give you enough time when I give you 2 hours on a 10-question quiz.
That's not. No, because some of these problems took a long time to try to figure them out.
Maybe at least truth table.
Yeah, there were a few
problems.
5-step
I
ones.
need a little bit more time on truth tables.
I do have to mention, and I don't know if anyone else seen it. There was 2 questions, and I have screenshots.
On 2-4, they're like broken.
There was 2 of them that were broken to where the only way you can see what numbers were in the set is if you highlighted the picture. So because it's white lettering on white background or white numbers on white background, and you can't see that stuff.
Yeah, let me know if there's any problem.
Or it would change your answers when you check it. Like you could have the right answer in there, and then once you go to check it, it changes your answers and say you had it wrong or you had it right the first time.
Well, let me know later on if there's any problem that does crop up. Maybe take a screenshot and bring it to my attention. I will investigate. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's try this problem here. We have 3 statements now. We got P, Q, and R, don't we? Remember how these go now? Now it's true, 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 what? True, false, 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 what? False. Do you agree? Remember when this beer
So
was?
how do you know how many components?
There's 8. Okay.
Okay.
So why is this when it goes this way? When you got P and Q, ladies and gentlemen, you got 2 raised to the 2 power of 4 possible combinations. See that? But when you got P, Q, and R, now you got 2 raised to the 3 possible combinations, which is what? 8 combinations. All right.
So you're not counting anything up top. You're just breaking that down like that.
Well, yeah, I'm just indicating, all the possible combinations that we're going to be forming in here. So P always goes what? With 4 trues and 4 falses. That's a convention used in your book. Q goes with what? 2 trues, 2 falses, 2 trues, 2 what? Falses. Wasn't that the convention?
Yep.
What was the convention for R? Alternate? True, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. All right, now we're ready to begin to add some columns on, okay? That's the convention used when you got 3 statements. All right, I have a question for you. What do we do first here?
We're going to do the parentheses.
Parentheses. Now in the parentheses here, what do I do first? Or negation?
Negations.
Okay.
Negation. I'm going to form a column which is not R. That's the next column I'm going to form to address this. Okay. Now this negate R. What is the negation of true?
False.
Negation of false.
True.
Just flip these around, flip all these around, negate them all. Okay, this is easy. This is the fun part here. Just flip them around. We got that column. That was easy, right? That was easy.
Yeah.
Now we also need to form another column, which is what?
Negation of Q.
Negation of Q. Let's form that column. This is just negating column Q. Negation of true, false. Negation of true, false. Negation of false, true. Negation of false, true. Negation of true, false. Negation of true, false. Negation of false, true. Negation of false, true. Done with that column.
So much easier when we're working with you.
Yeah. Well, that's a start. Do you agree? I mean, at least that's a good place to start, if nothing else. At least we got something going on.
Yeah.
Now, back in the parentheses, like, what do I do next? I got to do the what? The or here?
The and, the or.
Yeah, the or. I'm going to do the or first, and then I'll do the what? I'll do this.
And.
I'm gonna put this column in next. Okay, we're ready for the or now. Here we go. Got that column going in there. All right, let's see if we can begin to populate this now. Now, I have to take the or of what columns? Q and the not R column. Do you agree?
Yes.
Column and this column. I got to form the or. Or is only false if when. When is an or only false?
When both statements are false?
That's right. When both statements are false, that's the only time an or is what? False. Do you agree?
Yes.
Right? That's the only time. All right. So when are both these statements false? Oh, right here. Do you agree?
Right here. Yeah.
Should be false. What else? Both statements got to be false. Oh, right here, right?
Right here. Yep.
False. Other than that, it's what?
The rest
True.
of
Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
All the other ones.
Okay, it's starting to make a little sense now.
Yeah.
How we're doing this here? Okay.
Yeah.
Starting to come into focus a little bit. All right. Maybe I should have worked out more problems. All right. Let me get rid of all this. Forget those classworks, right? We're not ready for that. All right. Let's try this. Let me first of all get rid of all this stuff here. I apologize for that. These columns are spreading to the right here quite quickly. Now, what would be my next column here? Well, now it's time for this. It's time for this, correct? This whole thing.
Yes.
That's my next column. Here we go. P and not what?
Q.
P and not Q. Son of a gun, it's 20 minutes after. Well, let's see if we can populate this. Now, an and is only true when what? Both statements are true. Do you agree?
Right.
Yes.
So I'm only concerned with what columns now? P and not Q?
P and a negation of Q.
Right here. P and what? Not
Negation
Q.
of Q.
These are the only columns I'm concerned with. Okay. The only time an and is true is if both these are true. Do you agree?
Yes.
True, false. No.
No.
False.
No.
No. True, true, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
True. True, true. Let's see. True, true. Oh, there's another true,
Yep.
true. True. No. No.
No.
No.
No.
No.
So the
You
rest
agree?
is false.
They're false for all the other ones. See, this is not that bad when you break it down in little smaller, manageable chunks. Do you agree like this? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now,
I think we should have had you helping us more, a little bit more like this
yeah,
first.
I know. I should go back with the hands of clock.
Now you gotta put all that in the equation. In the
Yeah.
table.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, our last column is going to be the whole darn thing. Well, wait a minute. Whoa. Wait a minute. We're not ready for that. Because remember,
If
a
then.
biconditional is a what? It's an and, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of two conditional. Oh, yeah. So I'll tell you what. Oh, son of a gun. This is it's spreading to the right here. Yeah, you know, the next column I should have, see, because a biconditional, isn't a biconditional if Q, then what? Not R. And
If Q.
wait a minute.
No.
Wait a second here. It should be if this, then what? This. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Hold on. The biconditional for this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be, this is like our whole P statement. Do you agree? And this is like our whole Q statement. Think of it that way, right?
Okay.
So this whole biconditional is going to be what? If this, then this, correct? if this, then this. And now if this, what? Then this, correct? Then this. That's what that whole biconditional is here. If this, then this, right, is here. And if this, then what? This is right here. You see it? That's the whole biconditional. So the next column would probably be what? This guy. Do you agree? It would be this, wouldn't it?
Which one?
I'm sorry, this one.
Yeah.
You agree? The next column would be this?
Yes.
So the next column would be if Q or not R, then if P and not Q. That would be the next column. Now, remember, conditional is only false if the first statement is true and the second statement's false, correct?
Yes.
And what columns do we use here? I use what? This a column? And what? This a column, correct?
Yeah.
Now, it's only false when this is true and this is what? False, correct?
False. Yeah.
False. Off. So that means this is what? False.
False.
First statement true, second statement false, the conditional is false. True, false, right? First statement true, second statement false, false. This is what? True.
True.
True. First statement true, second statement false, whole thing what? False.
False.
First statement true, second statement false, whole thing what? False.
False.
True.
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 First statement.
Oh yeah, false.
False, right? You see how I populated that column?
Sometimes true, both of them was false.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that. Okay. What would be my next column now? My next column then would be what? This,
That whole-
correct?
that
Would be this one, wasn't it?
Yes.
My next column is going to be this. And then when we get done, we'll just take the anding of the what? The last two columns, correct?
Yes.
Let's see if I see, I'm out of time. So, but if you got to go, you can go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to continue this. This will be part of the video. So my next column is going to be if P and not Q, then if Q or what?
Not R.
Okay. So that's going to be my next column here. Okay. So that means I have to concern myself with my first statement coming from where? This is my first statement, right?
Yep.
And this is my what? Second statement, correct?
Yes.
The order is a little reversed here. So the only time this is going to be false is if the first statement's true and the second statement is what? False, correct?
False.
First statement's true, second statement's false. Here it would be what? False.
False.
First statement true, second statement false. And that's it. Do you agree this is the only time, the only place where this whole conditional would be false? If this statement is true and this statement is false, correct? Otherwise, it's what? True everywhere. Okay. Now the last column is going to be the what? The anding of these two columns, correct? The anding of these two columns. And when is an and true? An and is only true if both statements are what?
True.
True.
Nope, false.
False.
This will be my last column here. False. Pretend it's my last column. I'm on a paper here, but it's my last column, which is the whole darn what's biconditional now. This is what? False. False. True, false is what? False.
True. False.
True and true is what? True.
True.
False and true is false.
False.
False and true is false. True and true is what? True.
True.
False and true is false. This is your last column, ladies and gentlemen, of that whole thing, okay? That'd be the truth value of the whole biconditional, all right? Which is this whole thing here. The whole biconditional is represented by the truth values of what? The ANDing of these two columns, correct?
So, so it's just the ending of those two columns.
That's it. Just the end of these two columns. That's it. That wraps the whole problem up.
Okay.
All right. I'll see if maybe I can work some more of these out, ladies and gentlemen, with a little video and maybe just have a supplemental video, okay? Just me demonstrating some more of these problems in the textbook, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See if I can do that, all right? I'm gonna try to buy some time, but I'll see if I can do that, all right?
Thank you.
For looks, okay? All right, I gotta run now, ladies and gentlemen. You have a great day. And
Okay.
I will begin to open up this section here in Alex. But I'll try to do a couple more of these problems on a separate little video, all right?
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Okay, have a good day. I'll be on for a couple minutes, but I gotta split pretty soon.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good one.